Shaunie Henderson, 55, is dealing with a storm she never anticipated. She was once hailed as a strong voice in religious and entertainment circles, but now she is being brought into the public front for all the wrong reasons. And it's gospel powerhouse Leandria Johnson who is spearheading the effort. Not only is this confrontation shocking, but it's also revealing facts, sparking criticism, and leaving followers wondering, is this finally the end of Shaunie Henderson's influence? Hold on, because what I'm about to share will alter your perception of these two ladies. Shaunie Henderson has been well known for a long time. Her impact has been indisputable, ranging from her ascent in the entertainment sector to her position as a well-known personality in religious settings. However, her reputation has suffered a serious blow in recent weeks. She has spent her entire career avoiding public cancellation, which she now faces at the age of 55. Leandria Johnson, a gospel singer, is at the center of this storm, a woman renowned for her courageous honesty as well as her strong voice. Even when it causes discomfort, Leandria has never hesitated to speak the truth. She has now focused that same intensity on Shaunie, and the outcomes are astounding. What specifically transpired between Leandria Johnson and Shaunie Henderson? Why is this conflict so contentious? Most importantly, after years of affection and respect, why are so many people now turning against Shaunie? In today's video, we will dissect everything. We'll look at Shaunie's career, how her popularity grew, the specifics of Leandria's altercation, the fan outrage, and the broader discussion about faith, accountability, and celebrity culture. Believe me, there are many unexpected turns, startling discoveries, and lessons in this story that go well beyond the news reports. And it gets more confusing the further we go, because this is more than just a conflict between two strong women. It's about a culture of honesty, openness, and whether or not being famous can actually keep you safe when the world decides it's time to end things. This is where things become even more intriguing though, because it wasn't Leandria's comments that signaled trouble. They began in the shadows of Shaunie's public persona a long time ago. You'll see why everyone is talking about this confrontation after you hear what was said. We must first take a step back and examine Shaunie Henderson's background and rise to prominence in order to fully comprehend why her name is associated with the term cancel. Because Shaunie isn't your average reality TV star. Along the way, she has impacted millions of people, developed a brand, and negotiated several sectors. Shaunie first gained notoriety as a result of her well-publicized marriage to NBA star Shaquille O'Neal. She wasn't simply in the spotlight because of that marriage. She was able to quickly expand her degree of notoriety and influence thanks to it. Shaunie refused to become less visible even after her marriage failed. Rather, she took charge of her own identity and made a name for herself in the media and entertainment industries. Basketball Wives, the popular VH1 reality show, is her greatest claim to fame. Shaunie had more than simply an on-screen presence as the executive producer. She chose which stories to focus on and how the drama would develop, thereby directing the presentation. Whether you like her or not, both critics and fans concur that she was the driving force behind one of the most talked about reality shows of the past 10 years. She became more than simply Shaq's ex-wife thanks to Basketball Wives. She became a cultural powerhouse as a result. However, Shaunie's impact extended beyond reality television. She started to change the way she was seen by the public over time. She began to identify more with empowerment, family, and faith. She embraced her identity as a resilient, transformative, and leadership-oriented woman. She changed her public image from one of a reality show producer who fueled drama to one who promoted moral principles and positive ideas. This change was strategic, and it was successful. She started to be viewed by many as a respected voice in several religious and community settings rather than as a reality TV personality. That's why the current situation is so startling. For years, Shaunie Henderson has meticulously cultivated an image of grace, power, and strength. She is 55 years old and in a stage of her career where her achievements and longevity warrant celebration. Rather, she's being pulled into a conflict that could destroy everything she's fought for. And the subject of this dispute, Leandria Johnson, a woman whose unvarnished, unadulterated honesty makes her one of the few in the business who can shake Shaunie's foundation. We must first comprehend Leandria Johnson's true identity and the significance of her remarks before delving into the specifics of what she stated, because integrity, truth, and power are at stake here, not just individuals. Authenticity is the first word that springs to mind when you hear the name Leandria Johnson. She isn't your typical gospel performer who conforms to the polished, predetermined image that the market frequently requires. Leandria has distinguished herself as a woman who speaks the truth raw, unvarnished, and without apology from the start. And for that very reason, her altercation with Shaunie Henderson has shocked the entertainment and religious communities. Leandria's career started when she emerged victorious in the third season of Sunday Best, the well-known gospel singing competition on BET. She not only prevailed, but also dominated, winning over fans with her strong, moving voice. Because she wasn't just singing notes, people were able to relate to her. She was giving every performance her tale, her suffering, and her faith. She was the epitome of what gospel music should be. Real redemption, real hardships, and real people. Here's what makes Leandria unique though, her readiness to own her shortcomings. Leandria has always been open about her troubles, whether they are related to drinking, her previous transgressions, or the difficulties of juggling popularity and her religious beliefs. This is in contrast to many gospel performers who aim to project a flawless image. This openness did not harm her. Rather, it increased her relatability. Her admirers perceived her as someone who lived grace, not merely someone who spoke about it. She has also been in problems because of her honesty. She has voiced her opposition to what she refers to as church politics and the tendency of certain gospel leaders to prioritize appearances above content. She has been outspoken in her criticism of hypocrisy, occasionally using harsh language that has caused a stir. However, the same elements that caused discomfort for some individuals also contributed to her reputation as a truth-teller. Leandria says what others are too scared to say in a field that frequently values appearance and silence. Shaunie Henderson comes into play at this point. In recent years, Shaunie has put a lot of effort into developing a faith-based persona, portraying herself as a leader, a lady of values, and a believer. However, it instantly raises concerns when someone like Leandria Johnson, who is renowned for her unafraid criticism of hypocrisy, shifts her attention to Shaunie. How did Shaunie incite such a daring altercation? What is Leandria attempting to reveal? Recall that Leandria has nothing to lose, thus her remarks are taken seriously. She's not trying to maintain a polished appearance. She is not bound by a brand that requires flawlessness. She also doesn't fear criticism from the public. She has already weathered controversy, and she is aware that the reason her supporters adore her is because she doesn't play the game. This conflict is not being dismissed as mere theatrics because of this. Because Leandria speaks with conviction, people are listening to her. Furthermore, it feels less like gossip and more like a moment of reckoning when she confronts someone like Shaunie Henderson, who has meticulously cultivated a reputation for being untouchable. Here's the twist though. This altercation was not an unexpected one. There is a backstory, a sequence of incidents that prompted Leandria to bravely criticize Shaunie. You'll see why so many people are now speculating that this might be the point at which Shaunie's reputation starts to deteriorate after hearing the specifics of what drove her to that point. Things get extremely heated at this point. Shaunie Henderson has been cultivating an image of grace, insight, and power for years. She has deliberately repositioned herself as a powerful, inspirational figure, starting with her tenure as the executive producer of Basketball Wives and continuing with her shift into faith-based endeavors and her position as First Lady following her marriage to Pastor Shaunie Henderson. She portrays herself as a person who loves authenticity, embraces integrity, and encourages women. However, many people who have watched her closely claim that there has always been a discrepancy between her appearance and actuality. Leandria Johnson took over at that point, and she didn't mince words. Both women were apparently present at a private industry function when the altercation started. At first, everything went according to plan. Fans were chatting about who was in the room, cameras were flashing, and gospel singers were networking. However, insiders claim that as soon as Leandria saw Shaunie discussing some subjects that didn't sit well with her, the mood changed. According to witnesses, Shaunie was fervently discussing the value of openness in religious communities and honesty in leadership. It most likely sounded sleek and businesslike to the majority of the audience. However, it seemed incredibly hypocritical to Leandria, who has dedicated her professional life to opposing what she perceives to be phony perfection in the church. At that point, she made the decision that enough was enough. Leandria apparently got to her feet, clearly upset, and went straight up to Shaunie. How could someone who made their name on the drama and poison of basketball wives now be a champion of sincerity? She wondered. She emphasized that Shaunie's leadership had resulted in the destruction, humiliation, and entertainment exploitation of innumerable women. Despite this, she was repositioning herself as an inspirational and devout woman. Witnesses reported that a startled silence descended upon the room. Leandria's audacity was unexpected, particularly while speaking in front of peers, pastors, and business executives. Those closest to her, however, weren't shocked. Leandria is just like this. When she feels the need to speak the truth, she doesn't hold back. Shaunie, however, was apparently taken by surprise. She made an effort to remain calm and responded in a courteous but forceful manner. She maintained that people can change, that her previous endeavors do not define her, and that she has made a concerted effort to transition into a more upbeat, religiously oriented environment. Leandria was not done, however. Growth without accountability isn't growth at all, she reminded Shaunie. She inquired as to whether Shaunie had ever shown regret in public to the women she took advantage of during her basketball wives days. She wondered why Shaunie seemed to be eager to teach morals today, but kept quiet about the suffering those women went through when she was in charge. There was a lot of tension in the room. Some guests supported Shaunie, arguing that she was entitled to let go of her past. Others silently agreed with Leandria, stating that it was past time someone questioned Shaunie's meticulously constructed image. This is where it becomes even more startling. This wasn't just an impulsive outburst, according to insiders. According to reports, Leandria had been hearing rumors from other gospel artists and religious influencers who shared her sentiments but were too scared to express them. Leandria wasn't simply talking for herself. To put it another way, she was expressing a frustration that had been building for years in the background. The altercation had gone viral on social media by night's end. Grainy, unofficially recorded clips of the conversation started making the rounds on fan accounts and gossip blogs. Leandria's audacity was commended and condemned, and hashtags casting doubt on Shaunie's sincerity began to circulate. While some praised her as the only person with the courage to voice what needed to be spoken, others referred to her as reckless. The tale doesn't stop there though, because it was what transpired after the altercation that truly rocked the entertainment and religious spheres. Additionally, it put Shaunie in a situation she never would have imagined. Though it may have begun in a private environment, the public soon learned about what transpired that evening between Shaunie Henderson and Leandria Johnson. What starts as whispers in one room may quickly become front-page headlines in the age of social media, as we have witnessed innumerable times. Days after the altercation, shaky audio and video fragments started to appear online. It started off tiny, shared on specialized gospel fan sites and blogs that frequently discuss the turmoil that goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment and church industries. However, social media's quickness is what gives it its power. Before long, the videos were making the rounds on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Only snippets of the conversation were captured in the clips. Leandria's impassioned delivery, Shaunie's calm but obviously uneasy expression, a raised voice here, a scathing comment there, but sometimes it only takes pieces. With their own interpretations, audiences filled in the blanks, and the story soon veered out of Shaunie's grasp. This is when the trouble started. In real time, both fans and critics started analyzing Shaunie's career by bringing up old interviews, previous basketball wives shows, and contentious incidents that had long been hidden beneath her glossy rebrand. On Twitter, a torrent of criticism suddenly erupted. Trending threads compared Shaunie's remarks regarding authenticity to her track record of creating disputes and problems on reality TV, while attempting to portray herself as an advocate for empowerment. Several users accused her of making money from the suffering of Black women. Others noted that although she frequently discussed religion, grace, and forgiveness, she had seldom ever, if ever, publicly apologized for the poisonous culture of basketball wives. Gospel supporters, meanwhile, united behind Leandria Johnson. Her courage was commended by many, who said she voiced the truth that others were too scared to express out. Supporters found Leandria much more credible because of her own reputation as an honest, unvarnished truth-teller. This is a woman who has publicly acknowledged her battles with addiction, faith, and church culture. After all, and because she doesn't hide behind a well-manicured exterior, she is respected by others. Conversely, Shaunie's fans stood up for her. They contended that it is unjust to bring up her past because individuals change. They drew attention to the fact that chaotic reality TV has benefited numerous producers and media titans. However, it appears that Shaunie is the only one held to this unachievable standard. Her recent marriage and her work in the Christian community, according to her supporters, demonstrate her desire to change. Nuance doesn't often prevail in cancel culture though, and what initially appeared to be a fair discussion soon swung in favor of Shaunie receiving more harsh criticism than ever before. The story gained momentum when it was picked up by major gossip blogs. Shaunie was exposed and criticized for her hypocrisy, according to the headlines. Podcasters and YouTubers started posting commentary videos that examined every aspect of the altercation. Others are giving Shaunie the benefit of the doubt, while others are supporting Leandria. In any case, the controversy just got louder as the clicks continued. Public opinion wasn't the only thing affected. Church leaders and religious influencers were reportedly split behind the scenes. Leandria's strategy, according to some, was overly combative and ran the risk of causing division in the neighborhood. But for others, it served as a critical reminder that religious leaders shouldn't be exempt from accountability simply because of their position. The most startling element comes after. According to sources, Shaunie's speaking engagements and brand alliances felt the impact almost immediately. According to reports, organizers of future religious conferences started to reevaluate her presence because they were concerned that the controversy would dominate their activities. There were also rumors that sponsorship options related to her inspirational brand were being considered. In summary, Shaunie Henderson's situation has escalated from a single altercation to a full-scale reckoning. She is not in charge of the story for the first time in her career. It's causing her to react, and it is precisely this loss of control that puts her public image at such risk. This is where it becomes even more fascinating though, because despite the fact that Shaunie's detractors are becoming more vocal, there are indications that this moment could make or ruin her legacy. Will she finally take the responsibility her detractors demand, or will she double down, ignore the commotion, and hope it goes away? Fundamentally, this altercation between Shaunie Henderson and Leandria Johnson involves much more than a simple verbal exchange between the two ladies. In the modern world, it has come to represent the complex relationship that exists between faith, celebrity, and responsibility. Shaunie Henderson exemplifies a generation of public personalities who first made their names in entertainment, reality TV, and popular culture before entering the religious sphere. She has done this by striking a delicate balance between the sparkle and glamour of stardom and the humility and sensitivity that are expected of religious leaders. Here's the problem though. Audiences in 2025 will be much less understanding if they believe someone is acting authentically instead of living it. Leandria Johnson's altercation is particularly impactful because of this. Leandria has always stood for unadulterated honesty in spite of all her imperfections. She has publicly expressed her suffering, accepted her humanity, and acknowledged her mistakes. She is a living example of the notion that being broken does not make one ineligible. You become more relatable as a result. Therefore, it strikes a chord when someone like her calls out Shaunie. It seems like the image is reaching out to the reality. A larger question is also brought up by this time. What do we truly want from our leaders, particularly when it comes to the intersection of entertainment and religion? Are we looking for flawless role models who never own up to their mistakes? Or do we want leaders who speak the truth, no matter how messy? In the current cancel culture, these are important considerations, more than before, because cancellation has become one of the only ways that ordinary people believe they can hold powerful people accountable, even though it can also seem like a cruel public humiliation. This goes beyond what Leandria Johnson said. According to Shaunie Henderson, it is about long-suppressed criticisms finally coming to the fore, not to mention the gender dynamics at work. The criticism isn't always as severe when male producers or moguls try to rebrand after making money off of drama. However, as a Black woman negotiating the entertainment industry and the church community, Shaunie is being evaluated simultaneously as a cultural influencer, celebrity, and religious figure. She is therefore extremely visible and particularly vulnerable as a result. What does this leave her with, then? Shaunie is at a turning point in her life. One option is to keep defending her decisions, rely on her supporters, and hope the problem goes away. On the other route, she can embrace her vulnerability, own up to the hurt, her previous endeavors may have caused, and exhibit the humility her detractors claim has been lacking. The decision she makes will either solidify her cancellation or mark a sea change in her narrative. Because a redemption narrative is something that the audience enjoys even more than a takedown. However, redemption only occurs when a person is prepared to take ownership of their truth and cease hiding behind an image. Not to be overlooked is Leandria Johnson's involvement in all of this. She has reopened a larger discussion about accountability in church culture by publicly challenging Shaunie. Because of their prominence, religious leaders are all too frequently given almost celebrity status, protected from criticism, and exempted from responsibility. The message from Leandria is unambiguous. If the church genuinely wishes to lead with honesty and integrity, such culture cannot endure. Regardless of your opinion of her strategy, she has pushed a discussion that many people have been avoiding for far too long.